do it in the authority meeting.
I would agree, Chair Randall. I think, and also being part of this in a couple of different advisory groups where you're sort of part of an executive committee that sees it first, or a review committee.
Yeah.
I think it can be a little duplicative. You know, if there's something that needs a smaller group's attention, we can reserve the right to decide otherwise and convene. But otherwise, I agree with your instinct.
And I really am not going to give more weight to any individual member because they're on the GPC versus if they're on the full authority. So.
And if I could just add in, I think it's still useful to have the GPC, for instance, like doing the salary survey versus just the review and making those kind of changes and structures. So you still need the committee, even if you're getting.
Yes. Matt, I mean, Mike, we keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I think I'm getting the answers. I guess the critical thing now is how you want those comments consolidated. It sounds like you would like them consolidated for the June meeting. So if we could have the authority member observations by the last day in May, that would be very helpful.
Well, by the last day in May. The last day in May is
May 30th.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. Well, what's today? That's 2 weeks. I guess that's 2 weeks, right? That's 2 weeks. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I don't know what. Okay, that's fine. And Mr. Lungi, I think that I would like them to come to you. In fact, first come to your email, and then they would be presented to the subcommittee.
Okay. Or to the GPC.
That's what I meant, to the subcommittee of the GPC.
Yeah. Well,
Can I ask a quick question?
Is there going to be a subcommittee?
Well, we are a subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to the GPC.
To the GPC, yeah.
Just a quick question. I assume you're going to send out an email requesting comments, not just mention it to send them in, like sort of separate it out and like so people remember. Like, will it be a separate email saying, "Hey, can you send comments?" Or
we'll put that out with Monica's self-evaluation on the goals.
Okay.
Miss Crystal, you have something. Miss Crystal, have your thinking face on it.
I was just reviewing the materials because I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about the salary survey, but we'll get there.
We'll get there.
In the meantime, I can orient myself into what I was thinking I read in the materials.
No, we'll get there. Yeah, but you have a thinking face that says, "I'm thinking." So
I think as you have pointed out that my reading face looks like a scowl, which is something I need to.
I just want to play poker with you one day because your face does all kind of stuff. So it's just great.
So we have a separate item for the salary survey.
We do.
Okay, with that, Monica will send out her self-evaluation assessment on the goals. Chair Randall, you'll ask for comments on that by May 30th. I'll consolidate those comments and put them together for the GPC prior to the June meeting.
Right. Give me a second. Okay. All right, the bylaws. You doing the bylaws right now? Yes, the bylaws.
Yes, I know what we need to do for the review.
Okay.
On moving to the bylaws item, actually when going through the review process again, I happened to notice that the state code refers to Monica's position as a chief executive officer. The bylaws refer to it as executive director.
Right.
On the second page, well, on the first page, I've got the code there. The GPC is the committee that reviews and amends the bylaws. So I'm putting forward for your decision as to whether or not you would like that to make that change
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think, I don't know how we've been out of sync with with what the state code requires, but since we caught it, I don't believe, one, I believe it's the right thing to do, and two, I don't believe it's that we have a choice.
Does
Essentially,
this require Ms. Bagman to get new business cards?
It might actually. Do
that,
you need you need a motion, you need a motion for that? I don't know if we do, I can make a motion for that, although, it's kind of,
it's really sensitive
literally,
to the committee. What I'll do is come back
it's
in
literally
June.
required by law. I mean, it's correcting, a mistake that we've been making.
Okay, I'll come back in June. Changes to the bylaw require a reading at one meeting, a reading at the second meeting, but action can occur at that second meeting after
Okay,
the reading.
okay. So the first meeting, the first reading will be in June?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Did you see any other bylaw changes or issues you think we need to address, since we're looking at them right now anyway?
I didn't.
Okay.
I know Monica and I have looked at some. We have some procedural things that we think are more related to the bylaws that we may bring forward at a later date, but nothing that would actually require a change in the bylaws.
Okay, all right.
With that, I have the direction on that item. If you care, we can move to the compensation survey update.
Absolutely.
I will admit, I've picked up and dropped down and picked up this a couple of times over the last 12 months. So I hate to say I'm not in the position I would like to be on it, but to recap the tasking, the committee asked last year for a professional salary survey from an outside firm. Looking at that, we looked at three methods to accomplish that. The first being writing an existing contract, which is actually how we do a lot of our procurements, because it just relieves us of the procurement overhead. That came with the challenge that the RFPs, when you write a contract, you are writing the contract as written. There's typically very little room to change it. And so in looking at the RFPs that the jurisdictions have issued in the region, they're for much broader pay classifications. They're not single position type RFPs. So we really didn't find one to ride. I did look at directly contracting for a consulting firm. That comes with a procurement process. It would require an RFP. It also comes with a $10,000 to $20,000 price tag, which I also heard from the committee last year that we wanted to do this efficiently, but very effectively. The other option, while I was doing this work, the State Department of Human Resource Management actually has at their disposal a tool that uses benchmark data put together by an outside firm. I dug into the data to the extent that you can see it for free, and it does appear to have some suitability. I also talked to the state staff, and they said that yes, even though we're not a state department, we could use the tool. And they are currently looking at Monica's position description to make sure that the factors line up. So basically, what this tool would have us do is at a considerable savings, $1,000 to $2,000 in cost, we would have applied to Monica's position description that benchmark data. That does kind of raise the question, though. We need to, her position description hasn't really been evaluated in some time. As a matter of fact, I don't believe it's been changed since we started funded operations in calendar 2013. So we'll have to take a look at that as well.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
And the folks at it's called DHRM, Department of Human Resource Management at the state, thus far have been very helpful. They also said that they would pull together some information from their databases because they recognize the unique difficulty in assessing this type of a position. It's not like an accountant. It's not like a CFO where you've got solid benchmarks that you can compare. You know, I'll use the CFO example, balance sheet size, investment portfolio size, and stuff like that. So with the committee's concurrence, I'll continue to pursue that avenue. I should be getting some feedback from them at the end of next week, and I can do an interim email report to the committee, you know, about the status of that.
Yeah.
If that doesn't pan out, then I think probably the best thing to do is to go with that second option and go ahead and issue an RFP for a salary survey.
Okay, so I'll let the committee members ask questions first. So Ms. Crystal?
Yeah, I think, and Mr. Lunke, you were noting it, right? Certainly, given the uniqueness of the position Ms. Backman holds, and also just in general, I think the fact that benchmarking in a lot of circumstances is much an art as science. It seems to me like there are probably going to be a fair number of judgment calls, right, in sort of establishing who the benchmarks are, reporting out what the benchmarks tell us. I am by no means an expert in human resources management, but I have done this in sort of a few different regional contexts. And I think it's generally kind of good practice to not have a direct report of the individual being evaluated as the one sort of making those judgment decisions. Although, Mr. Lunke, your ability to do things above board is unimpeachable. So if anybody can do it, it'd be you. But I am wondering, I think maybe to put a finer point on that question, you know, would DHRM be willing to provide to us or provide to us for, you know, a fee or something like that, a liaison or a professional from within the department who might be willing to liaise with the governance and personnel committee, at least to sort of exercise that judgment in the art rather than science part of that?
Yeah, and actually, to your point, you wouldn't be getting a number that got filtered by me.
Right.
You would be getting some ranges of numbers with pointers to similar types of positions. But I think that would then leave that work you were talking about to the committee. I can certainly ask DHRM if they would be willing to go to that next step as well and do that consulting work for us, or do that assessment and tabulation, if you will,
Yeah.
for us.
Well, I definitely appreciate the cost effectiveness of this solution relative to hiring an outside firm. I think it's really resourceful, and I was glad to see it when I read through the notes. I think that could be helpful if there was sort of a personnel element. The other option for us potentially, although by the time we identify this kind of relationship, it could really slow us down. But I know, for example, on another regional body, they work with one of the jurisdiction's HR departments, just sort of provide someone to help do evaluations, benchmarking, that kind of thing. It's just sort of a way to bring in someone who's related to the work of the regional body, but not on staff. So, but by the time we sort of create an MOU with another jurisdiction's HR staff, we may be way off our planned timeline. So it seems to me, and here I'll yield the floor, but if DHRM was willing to do that, or do that for a fee that is more modest than what we could find on the private market, I would be very supportive of that.
Yeah. Ann, do you have anything?
Yeah, just.
I'm sorry, Chair Wheeler.
Yeah, that's right. So having been through this with two different organizations and two different kinds of salary reviews, I will say, even when you get information just raw from certain places like DHRM, sometimes it's an issue because you don't have the benefits of, like, the benefits provided, or the bonuses, or the different structures, and you might just get a number and not know. It really depends on the detailed information that they have, and you know, comparing and benchmarking salaries along with benefits and any other thing is sometimes very difficult if you just get numbers. I'm just going to throw that out there, which is the place I'm thinking of. You know, they ended up going to an outside consultant because they had better access to deeper information. But of course, we could always go and see what they have to save some money and do it that way. So.
The information that we would be receiving if we use the DHRM tool will contain information like stock options, et cetera, because the deeper context is it brings in the commercial sector as well, corporate sector. But that kind of goes back to Board Member Kristall's point, where you know, it does need to be tabulated and pulled together. So I think, you know, if we can bring in DHRM or another entity to do that, it would make me a little bit more comfortable too, because then I'm not determining making a recommendation. So I'll put that on the table as well.
Mayor Younger, you have anything?
I agree with PHRM having a liaison. I like that idea. And what Katie was talking about, it just gives me the feel goods that somebody who knows and looks at this all the time is making sure it's compatible all the way around, and that we're looking at what we need to look at and we're not missing anything. So that always makes me feel even more assured if we can do that. I'm with
Okay.
her.
And I'm fine with DSRM, but I think, Mr. Lungi, what you said before is, first of all, I don't remember if we put a timeline on this. Katie, Ms. Crystal, you may remember last year if we said that the timeline's this year, because I hadn't really thought about what Mr. Lungi said, in that the position that was created, and two, we've been calling the wrong thing for years and years. And two, it was a new position with a job description, if you were, that we believe was going to do this thing. And I do not know that as they're doing the competency survey update and evaluating Ms. Backman's position against other positions, you know, it almost feels like we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, and we maybe need to make sure that her position, as it has been, her duties as they were stated when the position was funded, are actually the duties she's working under. Not more, not less, not different, but actually the positions she's working under. And I'd have to go, I would want her to go back and read them. I want to go back and read them. You know, that was one, it was a long time ago too. It's kind of as Board Member Crystal said, it's kind of a interest, or Mr. Longi maybe said, it's kind of an interesting position that there's not really any template for this, because MBTA in Virginia, with this authority, just didn't exist before we did it. I mean, you know, now it exists other places, but it didn't exist. So it's not, you know, we often, and I think incorrectly, compare it to something that's happened in PRTC or MVTC, and really it's not the same thing, they're different positions. And so, I don't know, it just feels like we need to, I love the idea of going to DHRM, makes perfect sense. You know, I think it takes the heat off of Mr. Longi. I think that's an awkward position for him to be in anyway. But I would like to maybe, I don't know, delay it by a month or so to make sure that the actual job description is what she's doing. So when they do when they start looking at it and evaluating and doing the assessment, they're actually assessing her actual the functions that she's doing right now. So when you said that was really a good point. But I think it would be less useful if they are assessing a job that she's not actually doing, or she's doing. I don't know. I don't actually know if it's vastly different, slightly different, you know, mostly the same, but one area that's really very different. But I wouldn't mind us taking a month and looking at that first.
If you are willing, what I can do is, when I started talking to DHRM, quite frankly, I didn't think that they would be as approachable, receptive, and helpful as they had been. If I'm going to talk to them about a broader consulting scope, as Board Member Kristall noted, on the actual calculation, the compensation aspect, perhaps I can ask them to do an actual position evaluation, which then would get that horse in front of the cart, so to speak.
I actually think that makes some sense. I mean, I like you all's opinions, but I think that makes some sense. Michelle gave me the thumbs up. I got 3 thumbs up on that, Mr. Longi.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it just seems almost obvious to me, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also been just so uncomfortable that we always kind of, did the, Monica Kate thing, and it just felt, I've never really liked that. That's kind of how that's flowed. Right? They're kind of always chasing each other when they're different jobs, and they're both so amazing, right? They're just both these amazing, powerful, smart women, and we shouldn't be pitting them against each other in that way. And so that's always felt uncomfortable to me anyway. So, okay.
All his
All right.
jobs are unique, and they are unique in their own way, not in the same
Amen.
way.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yep. Next steps, Mr. Longi?
With that, I have the direction I needed. Thank you. And what I'll do is send out some interim progress reports to the committee,
Okay.
especially in how things go with DHRM.
Okay. All right. Let me just do one quick run through. Ms. Wheeler, anything else?
No, I'm good. I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Crystal? Okay. Ms. Younger? All right. I think we're okay. And I think I'll see you all in 57 minutes.
Thank you.
All
See
right.
you
We're
then.
adjourned.